All right, guys, so we've talked strats and settings, how to play defense. Now it's time to put it all together and figure out how to actually score in NHL 19. I'm No Sleeves 12, and this is how to suck less at scoring in NHL 19. All right, so my last two How to Suck Less series in NHL 17 and 18 went over fantastic and pretty much got me to where I am today. So today's video and how I'm going to try and make it successful as possible for you is to not show you glitch goals or things that you can manipulate, to try and score as often as possible. What I want to do is show you plays and things you want to look for while setting up a scoring opportunity. I think that that's more beneficial to players than just skate into the high slot and shoot short side top shelf for a short side wrister. I don't think that's as effective as showing you guys why it works and plays and whatnot that you can look for consistently, because there's going to be some games where you play players that just take that, the go-to goals away. So that's what I want to accomplish in today's video. So here's what I want to discuss today. I think in NHL 19, more than any other game when it comes to scoring in the NHL series, it is insanely important that you are using the correct offensive strategy. And in this game, there are really three. There's crash the net, behind the net, and the overload. And I think that in previous games, there was really only one you could use, and that was the overload. And it was simply because everyone used high aggressive defense. And even if you were skill zoning with the centerman or whatever hanging out in front of the net, if you don't know what skill zoning is, it's basically taking a player and instead of having him actually play his position, you just put him right in front of the net in the slot and kind of clog up the slot so that cross creases and you can't really do anything in the middle of the net in the high scoring opportunity areas. But in 17 and 18, overload was so effective because the AI was so aggressive, because they auto held along the board, so it was never really super jammed up. Skill zoning was obviously effective, but it didn't completely nullify the overload. And the overload, what you want to do is it's three players along either the left or right side of the boards, and all you're doing is cycling between those three players along the side of the boards, waiting for the guy in the slot to get open. And you want to have him obviously on his off wing, meaning that you want to have a left-handed player on the right wing and a right-handed player on the left wing, specifically for the overload, because you're looking for that cross ice in the slot one-timer. Now, the overload is still effective in 19. The problem is that there isn't really skill zoning. I know people want to call it that, but it's much different than 19. I don't know if I have a name for it, but the net, everyone has protect net and collapsing on, basically. So you have all five players in the middle of the slot. That's not skill zoning. That's like skill jamming. And essentially that completely wipes out the overload if you're playing someone who is using that. There's no point in trying to set up a cross ice in the middle one-timer when five players who are insanely good at intercepting the puck are sitting in front of that in between the one-timer and your player with the puck. So what do? Do you just keep doing it and eventually one guy will get open and you hope for that goal? I mean, that's a possibility, but it doesn't really do you any good. What you need to do is adapt to the guy you're playing. So today I want to go over what to do in those situations. So first, let's start with the overload. If in the beginning of the game you notice, this is the strategy you want to start with. If in the beginning of the game you notice that they're either controlling their D-man or they don't have protect net on, you'll notice if they have protect net and collapsing on, if every single player is in the middle of the net and no one's really pressuring you along the boards. Now, if they don't and you see that you're getting pressured along the boards, now's the time to use the overload, because that means that there's at least a little bit more space so that you can hit a cross ice one-timer, and it's going to be a lot more effective. Now, goalie desperation saves and whatnot are still super, super aggressive, meaning that they'll save most of the cross ice one-timers, but that's just NHL 19. Specifically in HUT, if you have a trigger man, someone with over 85 slap shot power accuracy or wrist shot power and accuracy, the one-timers will generally go in. It's the guys, the base cards that are kind of lower that don't really go in, and that's just the reality of the game. They tune down the overalls. Shooting is lower on the base cards, and it just doesn't go in as much. So what do you do if they are protecting net? Now, I'm gonna take this from my buddy Kush Demon. He's a player on PlayStation. He's one of the best on PlayStation, and I matched up with him in comp seasons. And I'm someone who isn't the best with his thumbs at the game, but I thoroughly understand every single strat setting and use my CPUs as best as possible to make up for the fact that I'm just not that creative offensively and things like that. And he roasted me senseless. And he wasn't using the overload. So what he did was he completely outplayed me down low, and all he did was cycle around the net using behind the net to kill me. There was nothing I could do because if I went and chased him, then the slot was open and all he did was a circle. And eventually what happens is when you control that much time on attack, people get impatient, much like myself. I don't like the skill zone and sit there with one player. I'm not a fan. I'd rather try and knock the puck loose and go on a rush. But this guy just absolutely killed me with it. So I got to thinking, why not try it out? And when someone isn't using, aggressive AI, which isn't a lot of you, and the protect net collapsing D strategy, it's still difficult to use behind the net because, unfortunately, they just sit there in front of the net, and what you're looking for is a cross ice 1T right real down low in the, almost in the paint. But what you want to do is eventually they're going to chase, and you're going to get one or two guys behind the net. That is when you're looking for that wide open 1T, and it is insanely effective. Now, Crash the Net was in my strat set video that I released about 2 weeks ago. That is still one of the best ways to score in NHL 19. Because shot accuracy and goalies are insane, you just can't score consistently the same way in 19 as you could in 17 and 18. So what you want to do is if you're playing someone better than you and have some self-awareness, you'll know pretty early if the dude is better than you. You want to use Crash the Net because what you're going to do is you're not going to out-TOA him, and you're probably not going to come up with something more offensively creative than the guy you're playing. So overload and behind the net just isn't really going to work for you. What you want to do? Crash net. Just fire pucks down low off pads. I don't care if it's cheesy and dumb and cheap. If you want to win, fortunately, that is the best way too. If, again, like I said, you're not as skilled as the guy you're playing, and again, you'll know early on if you are or not. So you want to basically just come into the zone, fire down low off the pads, and it's going to give you a good rebound that either the guy that's streaking on the other side of the ice can get, or you pick up yourself. So that's what you want to first take advantage of when it comes to scoring. Is you need to understand what your opponent is using and what strat set works best against those settings. That's the first and foremost important thing about scoring in NHL 19. So essentially scoring, wide open one-timers is the go-to move in all hockey games because, well, that is the most effective way to score in real hockey as well. So I thought I'd take a couple minutes here and show you guys the best way to actually get an open one-timer. So I want to show you an example. This is on the power play, so it's obviously a little bit easier, but I want to show you an example of how to get an open one-timer and why some guys do it to you so much easier than you can do it to them. And again, this applies to guys that are below average, or 500. You can't really crack into the top couple divisions in HUT maybe. So if you're elite, you already do this for sure. So let's discuss what we do in this scenario right here. So again, this is on the power play, but I'm still using the overload, and this is going to apply for when you're 5-on-5 as well. I'm just giving you a very in-your-face example of this. While this is going on, notice how I'm just going back and forth, back and forth. The guy's not pressuring me. I'm not waiting for him to pressure me because I'm not even looking at the guy with the puck. I swear to God, not looking at him at the puck. What I'm doing is staring at my player in the slot this entire time. And I'm waiting for him to get open because there's a defender there. Once he breaks free, time to pass. That's it, guys. Wide open one-timers, when you're getting worked in the corners and down low, they're not even paying attention to you, really. And think about it. If you were to not look at the guy with the puck and you lose it, they have to go a full 200 feet to actually do any damage. So it's much more effective, guys. You want to be watching the guy that's finishing before, as opposed to the guy who's starting. I feel like too many players that lack vision only lack vision because they don't know who to look at. This counts on the rush everywhere. Playing defense, I feel like too many players are staring at the player with the puck, which obviously is a draw to it. You have the puck, you have the possession, it's in your face, you want to not lose it. But you're not setting anything up for yourself if you're not looking where you're going to go. You need to spend more time looking at where you're going to pass and the plays that are coming up as opposed to the guy with the puck. Here's another perfect example of watching the play before it happens. I have the puck and I make a pass. I'm already thinking about the pass that's going to happen after the first one I make, because I'm not looking at the guy with the puck. You can notice so much more offensive opportunities when you stop just focusing on the guy with the puck. It's how you just go around and you're stuck on the perimeter and you don't even get quality shots off. It's because you're not looking for opportunities to score, and this is a perfect example of it. You gotta be able to address and understand that there's plays to be made quickly in succession before your opponent realizes it. So the one-timer is easy. It's basic. Everyone knows it. The next play I want to discuss is the saucer pass just inside the blue line. So if you're on the rush, whether it be a 3-on-2 or a 2-on-1, there's a moment where if he's letting his computer defend or if he's defending, that you have a spot to take a jump when the guy that's rushing with you will get an extra step. It happens a ton in EA Sports Hockey League specifically, but it's right across the blue line. If you hit L1, just a little one, you're going to get in all alone. It's just because the guy that's on the rush with you has an extra step over the defender. This happens on the rush all the time, and you're going to see elite players do it a ton. Here's another move to use on the rush. Holding the backhand or forehand deke while you kind of squeak by a guy is extremely effective if he doesn't have a clear run at you or the inside track. And again, it's just about looking at where you're going to go. This entire play right here, I'm just holding the puck, waiting for him to switch to that defender because I know the AI can intercept the pass like no other. The second I see him switch, I know it's an easy enough time to pass and it ends up in the net. All right, short side wristers, let's talk about it. They go in much less than the prior games, which is good, and it happens for one of two reasons. One, in HUT specifically, shooting stats for almost all cards, especially base cards, are much lower. So they really just don't have the accuracy or the power to beat a goaltender. If you get someone who has over 85, most of the alumni cards, any of the good biggies, you can still pick corners. But the way to get short side wristers is to wait even farther into the slot. I'll show you an example right here. All right, let's talk face-off plays. There's really two that you can do here, okay? So the first is the tie-up. This depends on what he lines up with. If he lines up forehand, you don't really want to do the tie-up because he's more than likely doing the forehand straight back, and that's the counter. So unless he lines up forehand, you can do the tie-up, and if you have a good face-off stat, you'll win because it'll be a tie. But it's what you want to do is just tie him up, have your winger streak in, and just shoot really low along the ice. I find that it goes in quite a bit. The other one, if he lines up forehand, this is why you want to have a left and right-handed shot shooting opposite at the point for one-timers. So you just win it straight back, wait for a half second, watch the goalie. He's either going to lean to the left or right when you get the play. You just got to wait a half second and always be looking top corner, either left or right. And guys, I just want to reiterate again, when using the overload, always be watching the slot more than the guy with the puck. Here's another perfect example of me just watching the guy in the slot and waiting for him to get open. This is what all of the guys that score this consistently do. All right, let's discuss breakaways. In 19, they are much more difficult than prior years. There isn't really a 100% glitch. Well, there is, but they're much more difficult to pull off in-game than in practice mode. Ones that I use that still work, I would say about 70% of the time, is the toe drag. Basically, you just drag the puck, and when he's finished the motion of dragging it, you just go short side, top shelf. The other is the backhand, forehand, in tight. It still works. It's just not as automatic as the last game. Something I'm starting to notice more and more is that far side shots with players that have good shooting accuracy and power seem to be going in a lot more regularly now. Again, I have a very good HUT team, but if you're playing Versus, you've got Crosby, Ovechkin, Kucherov, Stamkos, all those guys, when you're going in and you notice the goalie's playing out at you like aggressively, again, this goes to the thing about talking about don't stare at the guy with the puck. Even when it comes to the goaltender, you want to be looking at the goalie. It's where you're going to shoot, right? So picking corners is more than just, waiting to get in and that, it's ingrained in your mind. Oh, this is the part on the ice where I should shoot top shelf, those kinds of things. Don't look at that. Watch where the goalie's playing and just shoot far side. I've noticed it goes in a ton once you, like I said, once you get, better shooting players. And lastly, guys, let's talk skill zone. It's the biggest complaint so far in HUT and whatnot because, again, I don't really like to call it the skill zone in 19 because it's a lot different. It's every single player in front of the net as opposed to just one and letting your AI do everything else. But there are ways to beat it. It's just a lot more boring and random, which isn't always good. Essentially, what you want to do in 19 point shots. If they're playing protect net and collapsing, that means you have all day up top and around the perimeter. And in 19, tips are back. They are effective. In 18, they would just stop dead. In NHL 19, they go in quite a bit and they are tipped quite often. But this is a bad example because this guy's not skill zoning, but it's really the only way. And you don't want to shoot up top, shoot far side at the pads, because again, there's so much going on, so much traffic, you're probably going to hit someone. You want to fire down low, see if you can get through the skates and hit the pads of the goalie. That's how you beat the skill zone, honestly. It's just off the rush. You can bait a guy and waiting in off the rush, or, like I said, from the point is really the only way to successfully beat a skill zoner consistently. But it requires a lot of patience and just continually doing the same thing. So guys, that was a ton of info on how to score in NHL 19. I try to give you guys as much information as I could from all the games I've played and the hours I put in at the start of this year's game. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If it helps, if it doesn't, if you have anything that you think I missed. I will be doing an advanced scoring and defense video that goes in side by side with my strat setting videos. As well as my scoring and defense. So be sure to watch out for that. Thank you for all the subscriptions. Subscribing means a lot to me. I am continuing to grow, and it is fantastic. And don't forget to catch me on Twitch Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday to Friday, for my daily streams. All right, guys? So thanks for watching, and you guys stay sweet.